Before I start and introduce Mark, who is awesome, let's thank Gerry for putting all of this together. Thank you, Gerry. So tonight I'm going to be introducing Mark Braziatis, who was the 2014 Autumn House Press Fiction Contest winner for his collection Truth Poker. He's the author of 7 books, including The River of Lost Voices, which was the winner of the 1998 Iowa Short Fiction Award, The Incurables. He was also the Devil's Kitchen Reading Award in Prose, and Julio and Rodrigo was the 2012 Gibble Press Novel Award. In addition, he wrote the script for the award-winning Peace Corps film, How Far Are You Willing to Go to Make a Difference? His writing has been featured on The Diane Rehm Show and on The Leonard Lopate Show, as well as on public radio in Cleveland, Iowa, New York City, and Pittsburgh. A former Peace Corps volunteer and technical trainer, he is a professor of English and the director of the West Virginia Writers' Workshop at West Virginia University. Please help me welcome Mark Braziatis.
Thank you, Christine. Thank you, Gerry. Always a pleasure to see you, and what a great event. So thank you for inviting me. Thank you, bookstore that I do envy. My goodness. I live in a college town, and we don't have nearly the equivalent. So how fortunate and how beautiful. My book is called Truth Poker, and I published it with a great press, Autumn House Press. And the idea behind the 15 stories in the book is that at some point in most of them, a character or characters are faced with confronting some truth and deciding whether to lie or to tell the truth, or to realize the truth. The story I'm going to read is called The Meat, and yes, there is some autobiographical basis to it. My daughter was a middle school cross-country reader, but I have cleverly disguised the genders of the participants, and no, this has therefore nothing to do with me. It's called The Meat. The father saw the first runner crest the hill. The runner wore red like the blood of every runner he defeated, including the father's son, twice this year, 4 times last year. The father's son was 2 lengths behind the lead runner, and the father said, perhaps to himself, perhaps to the fathers around him, perhaps to God, this time, no. This time I win. I mean, my son wins. So the father, in his jacket and tie, he'd come to the middle school cross-country meet from a sales meeting, jumped onto the course as his son neared, and racing beside him, screamed, catch him! Faster! Go! 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 The father of the lead runner observed this unorthodox cheerleading, and he worried it might motivate the second-place runner to pass his son. Seeing no choice, and also relishing an excuse to do what he'd wanted to do at last year's county championships, where his son had come in a humiliating 6th place, he sprinted beside his boy, yelling, don't you dare let him catch you! Run! Damn it, run! He had taken off his shoes in the cool fall grass. They'd been itching from a persistent case of athlete's foot, although his only athletic feat in the past few months was walking up 3 flights of stairs one Wednesday morning when the elevator at his law office was out of order. The father of the 3rd-place runner saw what the 2 other fathers had done, and he didn't want his son to be at a disadvantage. His son was disadvantaged enough, he believed, having inherited the opposite of a killer instinct from his mother, who regularly allowed cars into traffic ahead of her and offered generous tips to mediocre waiters. Faster, he shouted, matching his son's strides. 3rd place is for losers. This race is ours. We, the other fathers on the sidelines, refused to be outdone or outmaneuvered or outbullied. We, too, joined the race, striding alongside our sons, urging them on in a language we hadn't spoken in years. Yes, even the father who had declared from the start of the race, of the season, of his life, that he didn't care about winning, that what was most important was trying one's best and savoring the journey and making sure the means were celebrated as joyfully as the ends. Even he unpretzeled himself from his yoga pose, tossed aside his peace pipe, and thundered into the torrent. Several mothers joined the race. some confused into thinking it was an opportunity to spend quality time with their sons. One mother, however, discovered she could help her sons cause by tripping his opponent's fathers. Another, she had large breasts and her t-shirt did nothing to disguise the fact, seduced several of us into believing the race continued across a creek, through a cornfield, and over the edge of a 15-foot retaining wall. A third simply wanted to show she was a better runner than anyone on the course, and she would have shot into first place if one of the fathers hadn't tackled her. The father of the boy who had been bringing up the rear, and perhaps even sad to say, walking, was now driving him to the front of the pack on an all-terrain vehicle, its tires spinning grass and dirt onto the competition. Before the ATV driver and his son came within honking distance of the leaders, however, a father stuck out his arm and clotheslined both riders, sending them flying backwards into 26th place. Another father, a pharmacist or a doctor or a dealer, injected something into his son's left buttock. And the boy ran faster than he had ever run, but whether because of the injection or because he wanted to avoid his father's next syringe, no one could say. One boy didn't have a father. Some of the mothers wondered if this was an advantage. We ran hard and fast beside our sons. If they had been horses, we wouldn't have spared the whip. They needed to learn toughness, and we would teach them. This was a crucial race, a decisive race. This was the third race of the season. Bad things come in threes, and we didn't want to be three-time losers. We lost enough. We lost poker games. We lost bets on the Super Bowl and World Series. We lost out on promotions and prizes to younger men and dumber men, and men who were in all ways superior to us, which made us feel no better about losing to them. One of us had lost his taste for life and was thinking of checking into a psychiatric ward. Another, who was spending money like he had it, which, to our distaste, he did, thanks to savvy investments, had lost all modesty and moderation. Yes, we'd even lost abstractions, fearlessness, fidelity, faith. A few of us, the most unlucky, had lost children to illness or accidents, or in the case of the retired major married to his second wife, 20 years his junior, to war. It was all the more important, therefore, that the children we did have keep pace with our wildest dreams and defeat our most haunting nightmares. Go! Don't slow down! Faster! 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 When we realized there wasn't much distance left in the race, we had mixed feelings. On one hand, we were tired and looked forward to a rest. On the other, we had so much for which to make up, so much to correct and avenge, and so little space and therefore so little time in which to do so. For one father, there was the humiliation of being the only boy cut from his junior high basketball team. For another, it was the shame of being fired from his job last week. For a third, it was the embarrassment of his recent failures in bed with his wife, whom he was sure was having an affair. We had suffered failures of omission, commission, diminution. We had failed spectacularly and quietly, publicly and privately. After our failure, some of us had cried, some of us had pretended we hadn't tried. The grimmest of us, fathers with the deepest wounds, wished with a terrible ache that we had died. But it wasn't only failure that motivated us. There was jealousy, spite, hatred. A father of a runner in blue was the next-door neighbor of a father of a runner in yellow. He was tired, goddamn sick and tired of watching from his kitchen window every Sunday morning as the yellow-shirted runner's father washed his late-model Mercedes in his driveway, lathering it like he was putting whipped cream on a naked woman. Yes, much of what motivated us was sex. We wanted our sons to win, so the mothers who were watching and, in some cases, running the race no longer looked at us as the bearers of pot bellies and thinning and receding and graying hair, but as the still youthful progenitors of the victorious who could, with an invitation no more indelicate than a kiss, revive their lives with ecstasies unimagined. We weren't over the hill. We were about to catch a second wind. The course was now crowded and chaotic, and there was nothing the officials or the coaches could do to restore order. Besides, half of them had joined the field desperate to do what they'd long wanted to. Show these boys what it was to be a real runner, a real man. When you're this close to the end of the race, son, you don't hold back. You kick like a racehorse. You sprint like you're heading home to a naked woman in your bed. Or in the case of East Middle's coach, a naked woman and a naked man. But where's the finish line? Wasn't it supposed to be around this corner? Or was it the next corner? Or the next? We're breathing like we're in a steam room on top of a 20,000-foot mountain. We are losing our wind and our will. Is one of us walking? Has one of us fallen on the grass? Is one of us slipping off into the forest over to the right, hoping no one will notice? And where have our sons gone? Have they outrun us? But they were here only moments ago, by our sides, breathing the same air we breathe, their hearts beating to the same rhythm. Are you happy, son, wherever you are? Is this the race you wanted to run? Perhaps we have outdistanced them. Yes, that must be it. This shouldn't be a surprise. From the start, in our hearts, in our groins, we recognized our superiority. We are the alpha males to our sons, breathless, boneless betas. We hope to make them kings, but they're still only princes, fumbling around our thrones. Who's going to win the race? What does it mean to win? Will winning do everything we want it to, or will winning be only another disappointment? Something we'll need to run another race to transcend, forget. Why these doubts? Haven't we outraced doubts? We are the captains of our fates, the masters of our souls, the champions of... Now here's the finish line, at last. But whose idea, whose joke was it to make the banner black?
I just want to say, for those of you taking pictures, if you Instagram or Twit or something like that, it's hashtag IndyLit15. Feel free to post, please. Barrett, Free State Review. I'm looking forward to it.
There seems to be two kinds of plot. Go on a journey, a stranger comes to town. And I think that when I was 10, the go on a journey thing really sang with me. And so I developed a fetish for maps. I got a copy of Tolkien. I didn't read a page of it, but I looked at that map of Middle Earth constantly. And the other thing I had a fetish for was riding my bike, getting away, and also an idea. I idolized my dead relatives because they couldn't complain about me. But mostly when I was 10, I wanted to be 18, and I wanted to have a car. So I was really interested to meet Michael, who never stopped being 10. He's a geographer. He draws maps. All right. He rides a bike 100 miles on a weekend. Every weekend, 100 miles. He came up here earlier. He went to Cumberland. He went on some trail to Pittsburgh, and he just got showered up to come here. And it's just amazing. And so basically, he never stopped growing up. And it really comes out in his poems, and I think you'll enjoy hearing them.
Thanks, Barrett. And it's a real pleasure to be here. Whenever I'm in Frostburg, I always stop in at this bookstore. So it's great to be standing here reading. So Barrett mentioned my love of bicycling, and yeah, I was out bicycling. I didn't go all the way to Pittsburgh, just rode the trail back to Frostburg. I'm going to start with a bicycling poem. This is Bicycling Up Ilchester Hill, and this is one of the steepest hills coming out of the Patapsco Valley in Howard County. We climb Ilchester Hill to feel quadriceps scream against the steepness of the grade and know we are alive. After that first tenth of a mile, when the hill teases with a level tenth and legs groan and plead against the gradient to come, We continue to climb to defy the gods who conspire to throw us down with every turn of the crank. And because we know that by reaching the top, we will set Sisyphus free. Barrett mentioned dead relatives, and one of the themes and one of the topics in a number of my poems is the story of my great-great-grandparents. In fact, it's the theme of my forthcoming book, Shards of Blue. And it traces their lives from the time they went to Kansas in the 1850s, through the Civil War, and then to their divorce in the 1870s. And this poem, the poems are mostly told in their voices. And this is my great-great-grandmother. This is in the voice of her, of Mary, my great-great-grandmother. It's called The Glass. What happens now that passion's gone, now that love has flown like summer before the winter wind? The cornflower sky is lost to winter's gray. The cornstalks stand withered in the field, and even the crows have fled. Where is the passion you once held for love, for life, for me? You are here, but your soul is gone, left long ago on that battlefield. I cannot live with your winter and despair, the lonely days with you, soundless weeks followed by sudden gales of anger and the terrible hurt that you have caused. I want summer again, sunlight and blue skies and the greening of new fields. I take from the shelf the glass you made for me, hold it to my lips, and take one last sip of emptiness. As I walk through the door, sunlight breaks the winter clouds and glints across the sharded floor. And this poem is thoughts while sitting along the lower Potomac. And one of my favorite places to write is on the pier in my in-laws' house on the Potomac. Before everybody else gets up, and it's just me and the seagulls and the crabbers. Wind and waves hold power here. Resolute action is tidal. Fish and crabs know nothing about the left and right sides of aisles. Partisanship exists only with regard to bait. Rivers and creeks are the corridors in which history is made, measured in bushels and in the size of jimmies, rockfish, and blues, and the ones that got away. The only monuments here are stacks of crab pots and piles of oyster shells, and old dead rise sunk in a creek. Marble is reserved for the graves of watermen when they no longer go out in boats at dawn. There is tranquility here, found on the river at dawn, seen as an eagle circles out over the water, felt when easing a hook out of the mouth of a fish too small to keep. We may think that all that is important lies upriver, along grand avenues and meeting rooms and marbled halls, but everything flows in this direction. The lower pulls down the higher, the way overcomes from below. And I'll finish with a poem that was in Free State's Review last winter. This is Copacabana. We shared an entryway, or was it a space under a ledge? I can't remember. It was raining. I was on my way to the Pau de Açúcar. He was just another kid on the street. We tried to talk, but he had no English. I had only a little Portuguese and a phrase book. I don't think he literally had a hole in his stomach. When the rain stopped, I gave him money and left with feelings of pointless generosity. I hadn't ended his poverty or stopped police sweeping through the favelas to pummel the poor into the shadows. A poem has no value till it is trampled in the streets. Thank you.
Very rare do we hear somebody, we who live in Frostburg, here's like, whenever I'm in Frostburg, I go to the bookstore. I have to say that. Erin, are you ready?
Yes.
Margaret, are you ready?
I am.
Excellent. Sundress Publications.
All right. So there I was. No shit. Drunk. At a bar in Boston. It is snowing like nobody's business. I'm waiting for it to turn midnight because it's going to be my birthday. And in walks this, what seemed to be an 8-foot-tall woman in amazing heels. And I was like, I know that bitch from somewhere. And it turned out that I was like, I think we're Facebook friends, which basically is probably true of half of us in the room. So, and so when she walked in, we ended up, I think, doing shots and eating sushi, and she talked me into wrestling at the AWP book fair the next morning, which I did painfully. There were a lot of shots. And did I not know at that point in time that she would eventually become one of our authors here at Sundress? So now you know what it takes to get your book published. So
shots and wrestling.
Exactly. But what I did remember is I knew Margaret from the work that she'd done as an editor at Hyacinth Girl Press, which is still one of my favorite presses in the whole world. So what I also knew her for is also she being an amazing, absolutely amazing literary citizen. Somebody who really gives back to the community and she gives back before she takes anything herself. She does wonderful things in Pittsburgh with her free poems series and her literary anarchy. And more boringly, bio-wise, she is the author of 3 chapbooks, has had work appear in Rhino, Cake Train, New South, and Copper Nickel. Her debut full-length collection, Stationed Near the Gateway, was released earlier this year from Sundress Publications. My good friend, Margaret Bashaar.
I'm remarkably bad at taking compliments. I'm working on this, but like everything Erin's saying, I'm like, I can't go up there now. But yeah, I'm gonna read entirely from my book, from Sundress, Stationed Near the Gateway. I'm actually not going to do like a story before each poem because I'm just going to, this is a book, it's about an old haunted hotel and all of the different people who live there and pass through this hotel. And all of the poems I'm going to read are about 2 characters. One's named Claire, and if like there was like a main character of the book, Claire would be that character. And this character who is only ever referred to as the Demon Hunter. Claire writes a letter to the Demon Hunter upon learning of the God dimension. I will always remember the night you slapped my ass. 3rd floor, 27th room of the haunted hotel. I was 22, and yes, I did want it, but it has been 4 years, and still I can only admit this after 3 a.m. and too much of what I thought I swore off when I held my hands like the Virgin and married the Black Sea. And now, wormwood eating itself into my blood, the smell of all I have ever lied at the back of my tongue. I think of you, of how very small I am, of how many more dimensions I could travel through if only I could stop casting spells on everyone I meet. I know when I snake into the halls of the haunted hotel, teeth gleaming, it is only a matter of time before I brew another pot of something to eat away at my skin, to peel off all the makeup I wear and show that I am still that naked girl covered in mud, that I have not changed in the least. There is no shaman, no road woman, no man reincarnated 14 times with hands dry as old paper, no surgeon, no vow that can root out the sliver of the hotel's wall I carry under my skin. My heart has grown around it. I think of you when I realize this. I wonder what you would think of the dreams I have where I sleep on a floor of this hotel that does not exist, lit red and full of death. I imagine you once sprinkled salt in a circle around me while I pretended to sleep. I imagine you know the shapes of all the shadows that nip at my ears, and I do not even need to tell you of them. I imagine you have told me what to do about my evil eye, what prayers to say, which saints to pray to the hardest. I imagine that my head splits open in front of you, and inside is absolutely nothing. Claire and the Demon Hunter give it up for Jesus. She. Each time the same. I am holy, 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 laid out as a banquet. His hands are plate, cup, and knife. Always a long table, a single high-backed chair. This is my body. He eats me up, and I believe in transubstantiation, that I will awake someday in his veins, pound my fists against the walls of him. When the demons come, they come for us both. I am walking with his feet now, I am stepping into the river. I have friends who are priests, yogis, nuns, and they all tell me, Claire, you foolish girl, you'll never get to heaven like this. I've walked up this hill for 10 years, crest always on the horizon. There's a voice to my right, a voice to my left, a voice behind me, but I am looking ahead to the sky or something like it. Ankles both twist, but the fault is not the stumbling, but to look down, to kick at this fissure, this image that clutches at me time and again. The well-dressed men tell me God forgives, but I see no evidence of it. Just this expanse of skin he made, these long girl legs he set to running. I ask you, in the end, who does not chase after all the sweetness their own mind dreamt up? Oh, and there's actually one other character who comes into this, is a character called the Monster, the Monster and Claire have an interesting relationship. Actually, the person who the Monster is based on did the cover of this book. This is, the Monster tells it to Claire like it is. When I met you, thought I might rip out your liver and eat it some night, convinced it would be a mercy killing. You can be real hateable, you know. Lead with your tits, conveniently befriend pretty girls who couldn't think their way out of a paper bag. But I'll give anyone a chance when she has as much blasphemy under all her taffeta and glitter as you do. I see the nervous glances when our heads are together, hear the favored rumors. We're fucking, conspire to burn every building in a 3-block radius to the ground. And so you know, they say I plan to murder you still, draw and quarter you, mount your head in a closet. I don't want to understand why men whip out their cocks when my claws drip with viscera, when I stride towards them, nostrils white hot, why they shrink and go slack when you and I walk together, when one of us laughs, then the other, when we are both wearing skirts and it is midnight, why they all seem to find it suspicious that I don't want to see you get raped. It's a very family-friendly book. Apparently I'm just a horrible liar. There are other characters in these notes. I'm so sorry. This is the proprietor, who is the owner of the haunted hotel, obviously. The proprietor reassures Claire. No reason to fear anyone's pity. We watched you charge headlong into this room on fire, called out to you, warned you the ceiling would cave in, oil in your hair ignite. No one will lift the burning beam from your chest. Now you are sprawled and scorched. If your back is broken, you won't walk out anyway. If your rib cage is caved, lungs already punctured, do not worry. You know why you did it, why you let your skin blister, fingers fuse. We all tried to flag you down. Girl, the building is on fire. I know sometimes our own eyes fail us, think we fly into the sunlight. Some of us could never tell foxfire from an atom bomb. Have 2 more, and they're pretty short. This is to drive a girl to Satanism. Always feels so much longer the way back home. Tied your name up in my hair for a week, cut off pieces of my shirt, and tucked them into books, shoes, creases between airplane seat cushions. Ate oysters, drank whiskey. Thought of you very little. You are this flight. Tilt I am strapped into, jolt at the end. It is in air, when I know best times slip, oil smooth hands. How quickly you feel like fiction, how suddenly I forget your smile. I am this ghost you keep breathing out, cow or woman on her knees, legs tucked up, tongue wide. We are wet all over. When this plane touches down, you slide away again. The farther I run, the more you become a book. Tried to pray me out 9 months ago. Now what? Love, you are enough. and I will preface this final poem with, I have read this poem in front of my parents. This is Claire Gets Mad and Gets Even. If we are playing Jeopardy, and I am the answer, the question is, who is not your mother? Or, who will not lead you straight to the devil, even if you touch her, and don't stop touching? I met a boy from Milwaukee who drank whiskey. Said he'd gag me and tie me to his hotel bed. The bigger the sobs, the sexier the girl. I fixed my lipstick in the bathroom mirror, let him grab my ass with both hands, a sucker for sexual harassment. I swear this is not a threat. I do not want vows or a single shining thing from your pocket. You can keep Rodin's tools, the crown diamond of the last Tsaritsa. But I need to know when you will cut your body open, when next you will find me with hand and mouth and light. Ask yourself what it means that I collapsed a star for you. Know how long it takes to fly to Tulsa. That I've learned how to deep throat, how to grill chicken. Darling, I've only just begun to stretch my legs. Thank you.
It's my great pleasure now to bring up Robert, editor for Annick Anthony Books. I'm looking forward to this.
Well, Gerry's right. Braddock Avenue Books usually has its launches at distilleries, but this bookstore thing's pretty good. We like this. We also do our editorial decisions at distilleries and proofreading and almost everything.
126 proof.
That's exactly right. Anyway, I wanted to thank once again Gerry for arranging the festival, inviting us down, Fred Powell at Main Street Books for hosting, you folks for coming out and sharing the night with us. I think it's really a wonderful thing to be together and do this. So I'm going to just applaud you folks for coming out. And Gerry, thank you.
I'm asking them to clap for themselves. They're like,
Well, I'm applauding. No, you don't have to. I'm applauding you folks. It's really great to be. This is my first time in Frostburg, my first time at the festival. It's really fantastic. So I was going to introduce Mike. I had a kind of elaborate bio, but I was listening to the police channel on the way down, and I guess everyone knows who he is. So I'm going to make it kind of brief. Mike's stories, I think you'll see, they deal with the bullied, the bruised, the brokenhearted, a very sensitive approach to that. So I'm going to let Mike read and tell you what he's up to. I'll give you the official line. So Michael Gerhard Martin grew up in the cornfields of central Pennsylvania. He earned his MFA from the University of Pittsburgh. He lives in a coastal Massachusetts town and teaches writing at Babson College and for the John Hopkins Center for Talented Youth summer programs. His book, Easiest If I Had a Gun, was a finalist for the Iowa and John Simons Fiction Awards, and his story, Shit Weasel is Late for Class, which you'll read tonight, won the Knudsen Prize for Fiction from the University of New Orleans. His work has appeared in Junctures, Bayou Magazine, the Ocean State Review, and online Salon.doc, and the Museum of American Lit Review. Reading Out Loud recently produced an audio version of his story, Even the Dusk, which is available for free on their website or through iTunes. So I'm going to just turn it over to Mike Martin and say again, thank you all.
A lot of times people, tell me I'm funny. But it's the people who know me well who know that I'm a total fucking drag. Whenever I make someone laugh, I want to creep up behind them and whisper in their ear, no. So this is Shit Weasel is Late for Class. This is a story that I tried to write for like maybe 15 or 20 years, and then when I finally wrote it, it changed my life.
Could you repeat the title?
Sorry?
Could you repeat the title?
It's Shit Weasel is Late for Class. Shit Weasel is Late for Class. If you're offended by that, you can blame her. I think she's the one who picked it. After fifth period theology, Brian McVeigh backs me up against a painting of the Virgin Mary and smacks me around while his toady, Billy Moyer, calls color. I think it's because I stopped saying the Pledge of Allegiance. I told Mrs. Henderson, my homeroom teacher, that I wouldn't recite it because I thought it was dumb to promise anything to an inanimate object, that it violated my religious beliefs by being idolatrous, and because I had come to the conclusion that most patriotic displays were nationalism dressed up seductively. She looked tired and said she was fine with me just standing there. I am 15 and I have read all of George Orwell's essays. Billy Moyer says, "Your fat ass is getting kicked, fat ass." McVeigh says, "Call me pussy," and needles me in the ribs. Most of his punches are just jabs, only little nips of pain and fear. But I hate being a punching bag, especially in front of other kids. I hate his hands on me, pinching, flicking, poking. I hate his locker room smell of sweat covered over with right guard. I hate being one of the weird ones, hate being the kind of kid who gets bullied by burnout Brian McVeigh. I muster some venom and say, "You two will be the first against the wall when the revolution comes." And they look confused. Brian retorts by flicking my ear and knocking my glasses off, and then they move away, jostling smaller kids and kicking a backpack down the hall before them. I get to English as the bell rings and slide into the seat next to Kate Lavelle, my new workshop partner. I am falling more in love with her with every essay draft. She can draw, she can write, she acts and plays at other schools, she plays the viola, she loves Elvis Costello. I can smell her honeysuckle shampoo. She has lank chestnut hair and enormous brown eyes, and she also has some junk in the trunk and a weak chin, so I think I have a chance. Before McVeigh turned mean, it had been a kid named Jamie Lake. Before him, a kid named John Quigg bounced a basketball off of my face and wailed on me at Boy Scouts. I'd taken a turtle that he wanted to smash with a rock and flung it into the woods. But besides the physical stuff, the hard pinching of nipples, the flicking of my nuts, the slaps and trips and pushes, the outright punches, there's an undercurrent buzz, the message like synchronous pulses from 1,000 little transmitters that I'm a loser, I'm a virgin, I'm fat, a freak, a geek, a tard, a brain. I'm the kind of kid who absolutely must not let any girl know he likes her because she'll have to make a retching noise and say gross and never speak to him again. I'm infectious, and I know it. If she likes me, if she goes out with me, then she'll be a target. They'll write that she's a tranny on the bathroom wall, give her a humiliating nickname, put disgusting things in her hair and on her chair and in her bag. I've been wanting to ask Kate out since Christmas. I sit there feeling bruised, wanting to cry and glad that I don't. When it's time to mark up drafts of each other's essays on The Great Gatsby, I compliment her on her transitions and her diction. I know there's women out there in the audience that just wish a man would compliment. She writes, "Josh, I never would have thought to compare King Arthur and Gatsby. So cool." She's drawn a caricature of me on a horse carrying a lance tipped with a banner that says super genius. I don't even try, though, and I hate myself for it all day. I make up a story that I'm nobly sparing her the torment and humiliation, but it's hollow. I'm lonely. I want to date a girl, this girl, who likes me for some reason. But I feel like shit. I feel like I am shit. I wish that I were dead, mangled beyond recognition in a school bus accident, maybe, or popped like a balloon by an oncoming train. I think about being run over by a combine harvester, and it cheers me up a little. How do you get 1,000 dead babies into a refrigerator? The next morning, in second period social studies, I take careful notes with my stainless steel Art Deco fountain pen. I got into this program at Dickinson College in the summer, and I did pretty well, and my mom bought the pen to encourage me, I guess. It has a weight and balance that I love, and I'm getting better at letting the nib float on a cushion of ink just above the page. Mr. Welder wheels out the rickety metal TV cart and shows us his grainy, homemade tape of Ronald Reagan telling Gorbachev to tear down this wall. And he keeps stopping it every 15 seconds to tell us about the Red Menace. So I raise my hand, and when he calls on me, I say, I was reading the Communist Manifesto, and doesn't Karl Marx sound a lot like Jesus? Like the Gospels, the Beatitudes, I mean? You know, like when Jesus talks about the poor, isn't communism more Christian than capitalism? He gets agitated. This is the best thing to do in Catholic school. He gets agitated trying to explain my error, all throbbing temples and red cheeks and wagging mustache. I like him. He's one of my favorite teachers, but I'm bored, and messing with adults is a hobby. After class, he asks me to stay and searches his bookshelves until he finds a copy of a book titled One Day in the Life of Ivan Denisovich. He looks at me with genuine concern and tells me he wants me to read it, and then come back to him and tell him what I think. I read the back cover and nod, thinking I know exactly what I will tell him, that it's a thinly veiled bourgeois reactionary attempt to undermine the glorious People's Revolution. I can't help myself. In homeroom, which is also the biology lab, we sit on orange theater seats on risers so that the back of my head is level with the knees of the kid behind me. I feel the pen slide out of my pants pocket. I turn to look for it and get slapped upside the head. Then my Parker lands in my lap with the clip twisted halfway off the cap. The delicate nib is smashed, ruined. All of this happens while Mrs. Henderson is reading announcements. She doesn't see a thing. Billy Moyer hisses, "Why do you have to have a special pen, fat ass? Why can't you just write with a regular pen, you fat fuck?" During the announcements, Brian McVeigh hits me again and then again, each time Miss Henderson glances away from our side of the room. Sometimes slaps at my ears, sometimes hard punches to my head. If I try to leave the classroom before he is gone, I will get punched in the stomach and kidneys, and I worry about being late for class again. I think that I shouldn't be punished because Burnout Brian is a dickhead. I think what a loser I'll be if I tell, but I'm already a stupid fucking loser. So I decide to go to the dean, Mr. Alito. I wait in his office until he comes in saying, "Mr. Geringer, what can I do for you?" I look up at the kindly man who is quick to anger, and I say, "Someone bent my pen." He looks at the pen and says, "That's a shame. Did you try to bend it back?" "No," I say. "Well, is that all?" My mouth is dry and I feel the urge to turn and run. I want to tell him something, but I can't form the words. He sends me to class with a signed late slip. As I'm turning to leave, he says, "Mr. Geringer?" I turn and say, "Yes, sir." He leans on the counter separating us and looks through his thick glasses with his bushy eyebrows furrowed. "Josh, I don't know how to say this, but you don't really seem to try to fit in." He pulls in a breath and holds it. "Maybe things would be easier for you if, you didn't always try to make it a point to be so..." He searches for a word. "Just go with the flow, just try to fit in. Don't make waves all the time." I know he means well, but what he doesn't know is that I've been trying all year. I've been talking less in class, I've let my grades slip, and I've lobbied my parents hard for contact lenses. I've been eating spoonfuls of things that my mom's magazines say burn fat, like horseradish and apple cider vinegar. I don't read in public anymore. I've been starving myself and taking X-Lax. I cut my shaggy hair and went for a clean-cut part, but I didn't get the Harrison Ford look I was after because I have a doughy round face and tons of acne. I've been trying to keep my mouth shut. It just isn't in me. When he's speaking, I imagine marking up his pep talk like an essay with phrases like, "Avoid cliches," and "Is this really the argument you intend to make?" Leaving the dean's office, I almost run into a wall of huge Polish farm boys from St. Mary's. One of them says, "Hey, Josh," and I get a little freaked out, but I nod and smile at Mark Osowski. These kids are tractor trailers, monster trucks, bulldozers. But they don't pick on kids. Mark especially is smart. He's squat with a square head and really, really bad skin, and he doesn't get hassled. He has muscles like a horse from slinging hay bales. He's going to prom with Katie Altendorfer, and they're a couple now, and I wonder if they're in love. She is smoking hot. I say, "Hey, Mark," and he says, "Hey, wait a minute. Hey, you guys, this is the kid, Josh. He got the highest SATs. I resist the urge to shush him. Everyone knows, but I think I can still live it down. One of the other boys, taller and just to stick around in the arms and chest, says, "High five. Mark got the highest, TSWE. His voice booms in the tiled corridor. My hand stings with his approval. "I heard, yeah, awesome, congratulations, man, congratulations." He beams at me. I know they don't mean any harm, but I'm afraid of them anyway. I feel myself flushing red, so I paste on a smile and retreat to class. At home, off the bus, I let myself into the house and go straight to my room. I take off my uniform trousers and my blue acrylic school sweater, my Oxford shirt, and my Mickey Mouse tie. I take off 2 layers of 2 small T-shirts that I've pulled from the donation bags my mom always forgets to take to St. Vincent de Paul. I stand in front of my mirror in my underwear trying to find something that isn't bad about myself, something that isn't weird or gross or ugly. I think that if I had a sharp enough knife, maybe I could give myself liposuction with my dad's shop vac. How much different could it be? It would hurt, sure. I'd have to go to the hospital, but they wouldn't put the fat back in. I decide to skip dinner. I get down on the floor and do a dozen clumsy sit-ups before I'm winded. I bite my hand as hard as I can to stop from crying, and I muffle my face so my sisters won't hear and tell on me. My mom has threatened to take me to a shrink if I keep crying. I come in the next morning and my books and notebooks are gone from my locker. I panic, and a passing Frosh says the same thing happened to Dan, the kid who wants to be a physics professor, and James, the kid with the Joan Crawford obsession. The Frosh tells me that McVeigh was bragging about standing behind us and watching us open our lockers to get the combinations. The Frosh says, that kid is a fucking dick. I go to Mr. Alito. This time I tell him that it was Brian, that he's been picking on me and the other boys, and that he's taken our books. He makes me sit in the foyer to his office while he calls McVeigh in and slams the door. I hear him yelling for a long time. Brian comes out, Mr. Alito hovering over him like a red-faced bird of prey. Brian tells me where my books are hidden in the library and mumbles, I'm sorry. Seeing him upset and scared, seeing him in trouble, feels good. I beam, shake his hand, and say, apology accepted. Mr. Alito asks us to pray with him, and we fold our hands and bow our heads as he says an act of contrition, which I think is mainly for Brian, because what the hell did I do? I'm just glad that it's finally over, and it was so easy. It takes an hour and a half for Brian to corner me. This time it's a knee to the balls, my head banged against the wall of the corridor, sharp toe kicks to my thighs and ass. I'm gasping and crying. He hits me again and again, always hard jabs at the soft parts. He grabs my chest, pinches hard, and says, you have titties like a little bitch. He hisses, what are you going to do, gay ranger? What are you going to do, pussy? Tell on me? Thank you.
Four terrific readings. What a great way to start. This leaves me to thank our sponsors, the Allegheny Arts Council, the Maryland State Arts Council, the City of Frostburg, Frostburg State University, the Office of the President, AmeriCorps, and lots of good friends.